Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, January 8th, 2014, second meeting of the year of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First items on the agenda is minutes of December 18th.
Madam Chairman, I've read the minutes and find them substantially correct.
Okay, could I have a second from Lori or Tommy?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of the approving the minutes of the 18th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. January 7th.
Madam Chairman, I've read the minutes of January 7th and find them in order.
Tommy, you want to second that?
I second the motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Request for determination of applicability. If anyone's, are you here for an RDA? Okay, if, you may get a positive or a negative. If you get a negative, that's good. If it's a positive, it isn't. Well, it doesn't mean it's bad, but we'll wait and see what you get, and then I'll explain. Patricia and Robert Engel, 72 Old Dock Road, West Falmouth, for permission to construct a stone fire pit, a 210 square foot flagstone seating area and stone sitting wall.
Yes,
Jen?
Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project and we are recommending a -2 under the state of the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh,
You're done.
Is that you?
That's you.
That's us.
That's as negative as you can get.
Well, he's not entirely done because we haven't voted and we haven't asked for any comments from the audience. Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to accept the administrator's recommendation of a negative determination, say aye.
aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Negative determination means you don't have to take the next step. You can do what you've agreed on. Thank you very much.
Happy
Thank
New
you
Year.
for being so prepared. We appreciate
But
it.
that's a nice colorful board,
Nice and very nicely done.
which actually we need that, don't we? Don't you need that? Oh, you have it. Very, very efficiently done. Thank you.
Excellent.
You're welcome to stay. If you'd like to hear the rest of the meeting.
Well, if it doesn't bother anybody, we're gonna try to catch dinner.
All right, good,
Yes.
good choice.
Happy New Year.
Mary Catherine and James Mamory, 16 and 20 Brainerd Road, North Falmouth, for permission to install a natural gas service on the property within the existing traveled way.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the staff has reviewed the project and we're recommending a -2 under the state of the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion and second on the table. Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Woods Hole Golf Club, 130 Quistit Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to regrade, modify, and maintain existing practice fairway and install sand traps and drainage swale.
Yes, Madam Chairman, we have reviewed the project and we're recommending a -2 under the state of the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to accept staff's recommendation of a negative determination. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Requests for hearings under a notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. David Thomas III, trustee, 157 Nominee Trust, 157 Fay Road, Falmouth, for permission to remove invasive species, restore native coastal dune vegetation, and manage native vegetation within the coastal dune in accordance with best management practices. Okay. Do you have any questions on this one?
I'll save any comments or questions until after Teresa's presentation.
Okay, Teresa, hold on for just a second, there's an announcement.
Okay.
And the announcement is, at the end, if anybody's here for continued requests under a hearing, well, I know you're here, but we're gonna hear yours. But Town of Falmouth Beach Committee, care of Don Hoffer, Minot Beach, will be heard next week?
22nd.
Will be heard on the 22nd. Teresa, welcome.
Thank you. For the record, Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design. I'm here representing the property owners at 157 Fay Road, located in Woods Hole, directly on Vineyard Sound. They are directly abutting another invasive species management project that we're currently working on at 167 Fay Road. That's coming along very well. Basically, we're proposing some minor invasive species management and vegetation restoration in the dune and back dune buffer areas of this property. The resource areas on the property include coastal beach, coastal dune, and coastal bank. There's currently some bayberry and beach plum in this area here that had been previously planted as part of, as mitigation for another project that was done on the property just a short time ago. The vegetated buffer actually is rather narrow. It ranges in depth from 4 feet wide in these areas here to about 12 feet wide as we get to the western part of the property. The buffer currently contains bayberry and rugosa rose, and there's some bittersweet growing throughout the rugosa rose. Winter storms last February and March caused some erosion, which actually exposed an existing stone wall that was located in the dune. Which you can see in images here. The property owners didn't realize that they had even had a stone wall existing in the dune here, but sand was washed away, exposing this stone wall, and along with the sand, a lot of the rugosa rose that was existing in that area was also washed out along with it. So the property owners contacted me because they were concerned about the erosion and the stability of the dune area. So basically, we're proposing to simply remove the remaining bittersweet from the vegetated buffer using selective cut and wipe herbicide treatments and hand removal methods, following the bittersweet management with dune restoration planting and enhancement of the existing vegetated buffer with woody vegetation. So one of the things that I was concerned about when I went out to the site was the narrowness of the existing vegetated buffer and how I think that is contributing to some of the erosion issues. Basically, we'll be planting native dune species, including beachgrass, bearberry, pen sedge, seaside goldenrod, sickle-leaved aster, crinkle hairgrass, little blue stem, poverty grass, stiff aster, wild yellow indigo, and butterfly weed in the dune area. And then to enhance the existing bayberry that was planted along the edge of the rugosa rose, we'll be planting black chokeberry, high bush blueberry, shrubby cinquefoil, and sweet fern to help transition down into the lawn area. We're proposing to plant 48 shrubs in the buffer to help enhance and beef up that buffer, and 751 grasses and forbs within the dune area where there's sand's currently exposed, where the rugosa rose had been washed away. The rugosa rose will remain. It will not be removed, but we may need to prune some of it back simply to do the cut and wipe treatment and manage the bittersweet out of the area. So the project will restore native vegetation in an approximately 8,500 square foot back dune area. It will improve the health of the existing vegetation through removal of invasive species, and will increase the size and density of the existing buffer and improve wildlife habitat and ecological integrity of the dune area. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this.
Thanks, Teresa. Jen? Tommy?
No questions.
Tomas?
I won't take the wind out of your sail.
I'd just like a new plan to be submitted showing the stone wall.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, we can
I
certainly do
mean,
that.
understanding that
Yes.
another storm may put a slug of sand and bury it
And
again,
bury it.
but
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, we were working with the plan, and actually Jeff Johnson, Holmes and McGrath, we were working with the site plan that they had used previously, I believe, for
yeah,
for
when you couldn't see it.
yes, when you couldn't
Because it
see
was buried by the-
exactly. Okay,
The
that's,
dune.
yes.
Thanks.
Yep.
Mike?
You took Tommy, you took my win, so I'm done.
Sorry. Okay, this is a nice project, and it'll
Yeah.
be nice. I can see you've done a lot of work next door.
Yes.
It's always interesting to go back and see sort of a project partway through.
It's an amazing amount of change, and we're just waiting for a little bit of a thaw so we can start planting the plugs, the forbs and the grasses in the area next door, so we're hoping to
Yeah,
get
I
that
did say to
this
Jen,
weekend.
if it were on a slope, I would have wanted that protected, but, I mean, where it is.
Yeah.
It'll be fine, and I thinking, spring's coming.
Spring's
Well-
coming, yes, absolutely.
Motion to close and take it under advisement.
Second.
Any further questions? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
And it will have a condition to submit a plan showing the stone wall.
Yes, with a stamp,
Okay,
so
perfect.
it's staff job or have some ground stamp.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor of the motion? Oh, did we do it?
Yeah.
Is there another question?
No, is there anything from the audience?
I asked that,
You did? Ask any questions?
and then I didn't see anything, and so I went back. Okay, there's a motion and a second on the table to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jennifer Snyder, trustee, Jewett Realty Trust, number 369. You need it? You need a pen?
No, I stole the butter. We received the slip from the butter.
Do we have the abutter slips, Mike?
Oh, I just turned that in.
Oh.
Is this one right here?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I just.
No, that's
Oh,
fine.
I'll give it to you.
As long as it's here. Boy, I'm awake.
You're so efficient.
I'm awake.
Yeah,
I'm
that's good.
surprised.
Jennifer C. Snyder, trustee, Jewett Realty Trust, number 369 Barneck Road, Falmouth, for permission to renovate existing single-family home with construction of a second-floor addition and deck, install a hot tub, install flagstone walk, and reconfigure existing planters. Jen? Do you have any comments on this one?
Thank you, Mike.
Only that I want one of mine to go,
And
have
he'll-
little colored
He'll
plans.
give it to you.
Okay, good, that goes in 57. And other than that, I don't have any comments until after the presentation.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mike.
My name is Michael McGrath. I'm a registered engineer and professional land surveyor. I work for Holmes and McGrath. We prepared the notice of intent for Jewett Realty Trust number 3. This is an existing house on Barneck Road. Barneck Road is the entrance to Penzance. There's a long house here, and then there's the gatehouse if you haven't been to the site. The site has various wetland resources. Starting at the south is Great Harbor. Then we have a coastal beach. We have Barneck Road. We have dune that comes all the way up in here. I forgot one. This is actually dune, but it's overwhelmed with Rosa rugosa and bittersweet. There's a dune here. There's dunes in here. There's beach, including a dune in here. Then we have Buzzards Bay. We also have a velocity zone that's mapped to about this area. We show the 25-foot added. This is a velocity zone. This is an A zone. As far as the Falmouth wetland regulations, you have a resource area boundaries, and we believe that the resource area boundary, everything is in an A except a little tiny area in a B. And so what the proposal is here is to build up on the second floor an addition here, a very small addition here, and a little tiny addition over there that they're actually going to take some of the structure away. And the bottom line is that attached to your colored plan is a blow-up of an exhibit that's in the notice of intent. I forgot to describe one thing, is that there's an existing shed around on the Buzzards Bay side of the structure. There's also a concrete patio, and there's a little gap between the edge of the patio and the proposed shed. They'd like to put sorry about that, I didn't shut off my phone, a hot tub there. I should have described man's activities on the site. There's an ancient breakwater that goes across. You can still see it sticking up. There's an existing walkway, and this is all grass. And on this side, it's paved all the way back in here. There's an outdoor shower, a shed, and as I described, the concrete path. Then there's boardwalks that go out to a set of stairs out to the coastal beach. Let's go back to the activity again. We're going to build additions on the second floor. This is in a velocity zone. The zoning bylaw and your regulations say you can build 200 square feet without elevating the entire structure. The building code's been changed to, in order to build the 200 square feet, it has to be above the velocity zone. And so there are going to be a couple of posts that are going to be constructed to support these additions, but the additions are up at the second floor. So the architect believes that they conform to the requirements of the building code. If we refer to the second page, it shows that we're doing a whole bunch of little improvements. Let's start out front. There's a very strange hourglass-shaped driveway, and we're going to remove that pavement. We're going to make it so it's 24 foot wide, because that's a town bylaw under the DPW driveways permits. And they actually park 3 cars here all the time, so we're adding a little bit of reinforced grass on that side. So we're showing the removal of some of the pavement here. This existing tree, we're showing that to be preserved. There's a area of what we're calling improvement plantings of 60 square feet that goes between that tree and the breakwater up against the westerly boundary. We're going to take out the existing sidewalk and reroute it over to the new porch. The new porch is going to be constructed so that the second floor will shade an entrance that's going to be here. And then there's going to be cantilevered little area here so that these up at the second floor. So we're showing an increase in impervious area here, an increase in here, increase in here, and there's a minor decrease in here. We're showing the removal of the pavement here, and we're putting in stepping stones. We have assumed that the stepping stones have half the impervious area of that paved area. So we believe that we're making improvement here up against this hedge, between the hedge and the house, and that there'll be a more impervious area. We are, there's a slight increase of impervious here when they put the spa or hot tub in that corner. We're going to fill in that gap between. So we believe that total increase of impervious area is 423, and the reduction in impervious area is 431 square feet. So we believe that with the improvement plannings that we have designed an application or project that meets your performance standards. This house is served by municipal sewer. We are showing new dry wells. There's no dry wells currently, so we are showing that the roof will be drained into dry wells. It's a rather interesting house if you've been to the site. Are there any specific questions I can answer concerning the project?
Is it an old house that was just renovated?
I don't think it was it hasn't, if it's,
I mean, it has all new shingles on it,
They used
oh,
to-
yeah, but that,
They
yeah,
used to call it the Ark.
the Ark.
so it's an old house,
Older, yeah.
older.
I mean, I've been here 40 years. It's been here 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, so it's old. I mean, it's not old like 400 years.
it's more
It
than
wasn't
40
built-
years old.
It wasn't built
And it-
3 years ago.
Oh, no. It's been here as long as I've been here, at least.
And then it's old.
Be careful.
Jen, do you have any questions? Court, any questions?
I'll listen.
Okay. Tommy? Tom?
Is the shed staying next to the hot tub?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, Do you know what they're gonna use for columns coming down?
No, I don't.
There's no architecturals.
There's architecturals I filed with the Board of Appeals, but I don't remember what the material was.
It's,
I think they're only wood.
yeah, wood wrapped, I would imagine. Okay, no questions.
Mike?
There's a cesspool shown in the,
It's been abandoned,
it's been abandoned.
yes, because it was connected to town sewer when, in fact, you guys issued either an RDA or an order that allowed that about 10 years ago.
You have a note on your drawing, and maybe I just never noticed, and this refers to the year. Under A, no person or persons, including any municipal or other public official, may rely upon this information.
Unless it's stamped, unless the plan is stamped. In other words,
Okay. All right, unless stamped in, it is stamped. All right.
Yeah.
I just thought you were avoiding me somehow. That's-
it's hard to avoid the Conservation Commission.
Well, I was just making sure that you weren't trying. That's, you know.
No,
further-
that's to make sure. There was a case in another town where someone Xeroxed the plan off, altered the plan, and then submitted it to a town. And someone was convicted of forgery. So when I heard that, I decided I
You
should put the
decided
red.
you had to do something. Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. You didn't comment on the propane tank, which is shown being removed.
Then it'll be removed.
It'll be removed. Well, how do you get gas in? I mean, I like the idea of this thing not floating around.
I
in the
believe there's
resources.
natural gas in the street.
There is gas. Perfect.
And
Thank you very much.
Are
No
they
further
gonna-
questions?
Now that Mike has opened that door,
Are they gonna hook up?
it would require informing the board if you end up running a gas line through here, if there isn't one already. If they're using the propane for auxiliary, like a dryer or cooking or whatever, and they're changing that to electric or something, but if they put in a gas line, I see the electric marked out here, but if they're putting in a gas line, that would have to be referenced on the plan,
I'll be happy to add it to the plan.
if they're gonna do it.
Yes.
Right through that stone abutment.
It's already had a couple of perforations.
Okay.
In other words, the wastewater pipe's gone through it, so is the water.
By the way, I like the idea of getting it out of there, so I'm not gonna stand in the way of putting in a new line.
I thought the same thing on the ground. I was wondering where it would end up.
Exactly.
Okay, Mike?
I'm done.
Lori?
No questions or comments.
Mike, I was just a little unclear. Will all of the driveway, this 3-car driveway, be reinforced grass?
No, I described this 24-foot would be paved. It's labeled proposed paved driveway right here,
Okay, and then...
and then there's reinforced grass on
All
the
right.
side.
Okay. And the other question, I understand with your presentation how you came up with this, but you are in the Conservation Commission, you are not in the building code, and so I'd like you to hand in a new plan that takes out total area of addition above the velocity zone. It's in the velocity zone. I understand how you came up with that, because whatever the velocity zone elevation is, the building department requires you to be above it. But it's in the velocity zone. And here, underneath notes.
It says total area of addition above velocity zone.
Yes, and I want you to change the word above to in. Velocity zones,
The velocity zone is the elevation of the highest wave.
no, it's the area where you have a velocity zone, and then there's no upper limit.
You're saying that I don't want to argue it. It's not worth arguing. But what I understand, the commission is directing me to take out the word above and replace it with word in.
That's correct.
I will say for the record again that the velocity zone only goes up to the top of the highest wave.
Well, you may say that, but that's not how we interpret the velocity zone, nor do many people who work with flood zones interpret it that way. And so for the building, you can say that. For here, it's within the velocity zone. Thank you, Mike.
It's too early to pick a fight.
Motion to close the project and take it under advisement.
But as long as I have to submit a plan changing the word above to in.
Yeah, but,
In adding the gas line. But we
Yes.
can condition
Those
that.
two, yeah,
All right.
those two.
you know, with the gas line, they might be switching to, they might not be having a gas line.
That's to be investigated. If they do, they need to just put it down on the plan.
Yes.
If they're gonna have one. Thank you.
But that can be conditioned.
That is my
All right,
motion.
okay.
Second.
Any questions from the, any more questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none, motion on the table is to close this hearing and take it under advisement. You with me, Susan? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. We just came in. Cape Codder Condominium Trust, 10, 18, and 28 Cape Codder Road, for permission to conduct invasive species management by removing non-native and invasive species and replanting area with native grasses, native shrubs and grasses. Jen?
We have not turned any of our, zone out there because it's
Okay, thanks, Jen. This isn't a record, though, Tom.
Dave Martin has that.
Tom,
Tom,
that's not a record.
It's
I've
close.
seen more. It's close. But if you're trying, you
It
gotta
was a
try
good
hard.
try.
okay. And we'll need these photos as well. Yes. Yeah, that's a true.
Moving at the speed of light this evening, so we're working on this. I'm sorry,
November 21st on that one.
on the date on the plan? Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Yes, no, thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Again, Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design here representing the Cape Codder Condominium Association. I'm also here with Tom Bunker of BSS Design, Bob Ament, who is also representing the Cape Codder Condominium Association, and Greg Leahy, who's here for the Cape Codder Condominium Association. I'd like to start just jumping into the history. I was first introduced to this property about a year ago when I was contacted by Mr. Ament and the Cape Codder Condominium Association to assess the invasive species issue within the buffer zone and on the coastal bank. What I discovered was a coastal bank and buffer zone area that's severely infested with invasive plant species, most notably with black swallowwort, Asiatic bittersweet, porcelain berry, border privet, shrub honeysuckle, multiflora rose, autumn olive, and Japanese knotweed, which just about runs the gamut of all the invasive plant species that we find here in Cape Cod. In working with the Cape Codder Condominium Association over the course of the year in developing this plan, I was really trying to dig into the history of the property, and what I discovered is that there's really a history of significant disturbance within the buffer zone area on the property back when it was the Cape Codder Hotel, when there were plantings and patios right up to the top of the coastal bank. And then when redevelopment was undertaken on the property in the late 1980s, early 1990s, a significant amount of soil was cut in order to accommodate building number 28, which is up here. And so what that did was it created about a 160-foot-long, 4-foot-high mounded hill or berm between the existing building and the top of the coastal bank. So if you look at the topography, it's actually quite low here, it's quite high up here, and then drops significantly down on the coastal bank. So the grade of the current building is significantly lower than the grade of the previous Cape Codder Hotel. In 2004, a non-permitted cutting violation resulted in the creation of a buffer management zone, which I've included as an appendix to my plan. That was done by BSS Design. The plan included 6 objectives and action items, including existing vegetation, protecting existing vegetation and planting native woody vegetation to mitigate for the unauthorized cutting and to improve wildlife habitat and views. The plan discusses removing border privet and autumn olive, but makes no mention of invasive vine species colonizing the area. The plan also presumed that adding woody vegetation throughout the buffer zone would create sustainable, effective native habitat that would not grow to heights to facilitate the need for vista pruning, and the top of the berm was then planted with eastern red cedar and bayberry. It's unclear if any invasive species management was undertaken at that time in 2004, though it does not appear that a long-term management plan was developed or put in place. The native vegetation that was planted in 2004 is intact, but is currently being overwhelmed significantly by invasive vine species, most notably the black swallowwort and the porcelain berry. And these images that are included in the plan and included here show exactly what's happening to the cedar trees on the property that are just getting swallowed up. Here's an example. This picture was taken earlier in September. Porcelain berry is just covering the cherry of the cedar trees. So this is pretty highly infested area. The entire berm is within the 50-foot buffer zone to the coastal bank. The buffer zone at the northern portion of the property between the berm and the existing mown path in this area here is almost entirely denuded of native vegetation. There's some patches of staghorn sumac that are currently growing in the area, but otherwise about 10,000 square feet of area is entirely covered with porcelain berry, vine honeysuckle, shrub honeysuckle, black swallowwort, and bittersweet. The buffer zone area just to the north of the existing mown path supports some more native vegetation. There's eastern red cedar, bayberry, black cherry, sumac, pitch pine, native grasses located throughout the project area. And like the buffer zone, the coastal bank in front of Building 28 consists of a mix of native, non-native, and exotic non-native invasive species. Native species include eastern red cedar, again, black cherry, oak, pitch pine. Japanese black pine comprise the major canopy on the steep west-facing slope. There is some native ground cover on the coastal bank, including American beach grass and Spartina patent salt hay grass, which appears to have been planted as you would normally find these plant species on a coastal bank in this kind of area. The beach grass is rapidly declining. In many areas it's thatching out because there's no sand constantly moving on top of that beach grass to help it regenerate. In addition to the native species listed above, invasive species including the border privet, shrub honeysuckle, vine honeysuckle are also found on the bank, in areas of the bank. Moving south to the swimming pool, kind of going back and forth with these two plans. Sorry, this is a large property. Moving south, in front of the existing swimming pool and in front of buildings 18 and 10, the topography changes significantly. These buildings are much closer to the top of the coastal bank. The land slopes gradually downward to the south and is relatively flat. And the vegetated coastal bank between the top of the bank and the existing stone revetment is far narrower. With the exception of a few pine trees and a couple of cedar trees, which are currently being swallowed, there's no native woody vegetation located within the buffer zone or on the coastal bank. A mat of porcelain berry and bittersweet black swallowwort comprises all of the vegetation in this naturally vegetated area. And in addition to the vines, there's also a lovely standing Japanese knotweed that's that's growing at the top of the revetment here, and is working its way up into the buffer zone area, so that corresponds to this area. Black swallow, the Japanese knotweed is currently growing here and is working its way up. Some images of that area here include these two right here. And if you look at this area, if you look at this photo, which was taken in late August, early September, this area looks quite green, and it looks like it may actually be healthy vegetation. This was taken in late March, early April last year. This is basically just all vine material. There's one, you can see right here, little blue hydrangea that's trying to lift its head out of there. But otherwise, the green that we're seeing in these pictures is all vine honeysuckle, and the rest of it is porcelain berry and black swallowwort. So in conclusion, it's clear that some attempts have been made in the past to plant native vegetation within buffer zone A. However, the history of disturbance and quite frankly lack of proper maintenance has introduced invasive species to the area, allowed them to really blanket the buffer zone, affecting not only the ecological values of the area but also the aesthetic values of the property. One of the objectives of the 2004 buffer management plan was to, quote, leave little doubt that the Cape Cod Condominium Trust has acted as good steward of the land. Unfortunately, due to internal conflicts within the Cape Cod Condominium Association, management issues, along with what I believe is a lack of a solid long-term management plan, the objective was not met. A significant effort will be required to manage invasive species, restore native vegetation to the buffer zone and coastal bank, while meeting the requirements of the Town of Falmouth wetlands regulations and the property owner's goals of maintaining historical views of Buzzards Bay, as well as an aesthetically pleasing landscape. So what I'd like to discuss this evening is not only a short-term management plan, but a long-term management plan for this buffer zone area. The goals of the plan, as stated on page 3 of the invasive species management plan, are to protect existing native vegetation throughout the coastal bank, to remove and manage invasive species that are threatening existing native vegetation and stability and function of the coastal bank and buffer zone, to restore an appropriate native plant community, including trees, shrubs, grasses, and forbs, improving biodiversity, wildlife habitat, and ecological integrity, to manage the buffer zone for long-term sustainability, and I think that's a really important part of this plan and something I'd like to focus a lot on tonight, including the control of invasive species that will continue to threaten the native plant community if not properly managed, and to develop a long-term maintenance program that reduces the amount of disturbance within the buffer zone while improving the ease of maintenance and ensuring that the Cape Cod Condominium Association can provide the appropriate care and stewardship ongoing past the 5-year intensive management that we're proposing to make sure that this doesn't revert back to what it is right now. I think one of the things, I was going to jump right into the methods and protocols, but I just want to discuss quickly the actual plant species that are present on the bank right now. I think we're all familiar with bittersweet. We're all familiar with porcelain berries, a huge problem in Falmouth and in other communities. Black swallowwort is also a huge problem, but this is one of the worst infestations of black swallowwort I've seen from Wareham to Wellfleet. I worked on a project in Orleans a couple of years back where there was a significant black swallowwort invasion, which is nothing compared to what we've got present here. If you're not familiar with black swallowwort, it's in the Asclepias family, the milkweed family. The thing that makes black swallowwort particularly damaging to an area like this, a coastal area, is that it is in the milkweed family, so monarch butterflies zone in on this plant. They see this plant as being a friendly plant, monarch butterflies whose larvae feed solely on plants in the milkweed family. However, the black swallowwort is actually toxic to monarch butterfly larvae. So they lay their eggs on this plant thinking that, being fooled into believing that this is a food source for their larvae. The larvae hatch, they take one bite out of this plant and they die. So that's one of the things that, besides the fact that it's a vine that outcompetes native plant species, it's particularly deadly for the monarch butterfly populations, which we know are plummeting right now. So I just wanted to point that out before we get into the methods. So on page 8 of the invasive species management plan, basically, layout, I did want to note that I did have an opportunity to meet with Jennifer out at the site, and I was hoping to be able to meet with some of you out at the site, but the weather and time crunch just sort of came and went, and unfortunately, we weren't able to schedule that. Just to have an opportunity to walk through. So when I first reviewed the plan with Jennifer, she gave some suggestions and some feedback, which, you know, I took back to the Cape Cod Condo Association and you know, made some changes to the plan. So the plan that we're presenting tonight has been revised over the course of several months and almost a year, and working with a team of designers and then with Jennifer. So basically, these areas are broken down into, particularly in front of Building 28, areas that that we're proposing to manage mechanically, areas that would be required to be managed by hand with some mechanical removal, and then areas that will be all hand removal. So in the plan, just basically, the areas that we're showing in orange are areas where there's virtually no native species. The native species are entirely denuded, and we're proposing to use mostly mechanical removal methods in those areas shown in orange. The areas shown in yellow will be a mix of some mechanical removal, meaning some mowing and hand removal. And then the area shown in green, which is mainly on the top of the berm and on the sides of the berm, where there's quite a mix of native and invasive species, would be entirely handwork. So we're proposing to begin the project with a selective basal bark injection herbicide pretreatment of invasive species throughout the area in front of Building 28. Before any treatments begin, we're proposing to flush cut the existing staghorn sumac to protect it during the intensive invasive species management phase. We know that staghorn sumac goes back very quickly. In its early successional plant, it's one of the first things to move into an area that is mostly herbaceous vegetation. The existing eastern red cedars and large clusters of native shrubs will be protected by construction fencing placed around the drip line. First pretreatment will be followed 2 to 3 weeks later, giving time for the herbicide to translocate by a second pretreatment. Our concern here is that there's such a dense mat of this vine species that it's going to require several applications of herbicide before we would even begin cutting and wiping. We want to give the herbicide chance to translocate to the root systems and be most effective. Several weeks later, we'd begin the mechanical removal of invasive species in those areas appropriate for mechanical removal. As illustrated on the plan, we would be using a low ground impact track machine equipped with a specialized root grapple that's designed to remove the root material but leave the soils behind. Areas where it's not appropriate to use mechanical removal will be cut and removed by hand. And areas where we're concerned about damage to native plant species, we will be cutting, selectively treating, removing by hand. Vines reaching up into healthy trees will be cut and treated at the ground, allowed to decompose before removing from the trees in order to avoid damaging healthy canopy. We will not be pulling vines from trees. Invasive vegetation in less heavily invaded areas and areas at the top of the berm will be selectively treated and cut by hand and removed, and all debris will be removed from the site for proper disposal. Understanding that this is a significantly large area, the area in front of Building 28 is approximately 49,000 square feet, which is a huge area. After the invasive species management is done, the area will immediately be seeded with a mix of native grasses, warm season, cool season native grasses. Steep areas will be blanketed with 100% biodegradable erosion control blankets. Less steep areas would be covered with chopped straw. One of the questions that came up when we met with Jennifer, of course, is because of the large areas of this project and the concerns with removing so much vegetation from the area at once would be to phase this. However, a concern that I have from a management perspective is if we were to phase this out over the course of a season or even 2 seasons, we'd basically just be feeding the problem that we had previously. So one of the things we had discussed was perhaps removing the invasive vegetation from in front of Building 28, giving it some time, doing some replanting, some restoration, and then come back and then removing the invasive species in front of buildings 10 and 18. The concern with that is if we wait an entire growing season and give those plants time to go to seed, particularly the black swallowwort, which just like a milkweed, the pods pop open and everything blows around, we're really just reinfesting the area that we just cleared. So what we're proposing to do is after the area in front of Building 28 is stabilized, invasive species intensive phase is complete, the area is stabilized, meeting with the commission or staff or both, coming out to the site, making sure everybody feels comfortable with the stabilization of the area in front of Building 28 before we continue with buildings 10 and 18. Once we agree that we're ready to move on, buildings 28, on buildings 10 and 18, invasive species management would commence immediately following the same methodology that I just described for in front of building 28. However, the difference being that in this area here, there's literally nothing, there's nothing growing under these mats. You can see in some of these photos, it looks like there's lumps. There's just nothing. I've crawled in under there. There's just absolutely nothing under there. And as a matter of fact, not only is there nothing underneath these vines, there's no ground cover layer existing whatsoever. So what looks like a really well-vegetated area is actually entirely bare soil underneath those mats of vine. So if you were to crawl in there, you're literally crawling on dirt, and where the vines are coming out of the ground is the only area that would provide any stability on that bank. The rest of it is just mats of vine laying on top of bare soil. So after the, so of course we're expecting that some of the root material will not be destroyed by herbicide pre-treatments and will be left behind. We know that there is a substantial seed bank throughout this area. Therefore, we begin follow-up treatments, and I wrote in fall of 2013, I apologize, that's 2014, and would continue through winter, late summer, and fall for the next 5 growing seasons. So this is going to require an intensive amount of management. Because of the density of the invasive species throughout the project area, we are recommending a phased replanting. One of the management techniques that I'm recommending for this area is mowing, and I know that that was a concern for Jennifer, and I completely understand why that's a concern. My worry is that particularly with the black swallowwort, it's going to require constant knocking back to keep that plant from going to seed and reinfesting the area. So what we're proposing to do is replant in phases. The area in front of Building 28, we're proposing to restore 534 shrubs, 17 trees, and over 1,200 plugs of native grasses and wildflowers, as well as the seeding that we're going to be doing in this area. In front of Buildings 10 and 18, we're proposing to plant 428 shrubs where none currently exist, 413 plugs of native grasses and wildflowers, as well as the warm season and cool season grass mix that we're proposing. So if we were to go with a phased plan, which I think is appropriate, my concern is that if we were to revegetate this area entirely with shrubs, with that number of shrubs after the initial intensive invasive plant management phase, without taking into consideration that invasive species management is going to be ongoing for the next 5 years on this property, that will, the shrubs will actually get in the way, and we'll have the same problem that we had in 2004 when it was just presumed that they could plant native shrubs and walk away and that everything would be fine, and of course now this is what we have today. So basically, as is stated in the plan notes on both plans, once the intensive management is completed, we'll begin phase 1 planting. I would propose in fall of 2014. That will give us the summer to do some very intensive invasive species management. At that time, we're proposing to plant 1/3 of the shrubs. We'd be planting 270 shrubs, 17 trees, and all 1,200 plus grasses and forbs. In fall of 2015, we would propose a second phase of planting, where we'd plant an additional 135 shrubs. And then in phase 3 would be planted in fall of 2016 with the remaining 135 shrubs in front of Building 28. Likewise, in front of Buildings 10 and 18, we'd be proposing to plant 214 shrubs in fall of 2014. along with all of the grasses and wildflowers. And then we would be following up with 53 shrubs in Phase 2 and the final 54 shrubs remaining in Phase 3. On page, sorry, I'm in too much here. I know this is getting long-winded. On page 9, I have a protocol for buffer zone maintenance in which I describe the mowing that we would propose to do in the first 3 growing seasons throughout this area. And basically, when we're doing this herbaceous restoration in this area, we've got the invasive species management, and we'll also have unwanted weeds moving into the area that can outcompete our native warm season grasses. And really the best way to manage that is to knock it back with mowing. Reduces the amount of herbicide that we need to use on this property, which we already know is significant. But with some selective herbicide treatment and with mowing over the course of the 3 years of the intensive phase of this, and perhaps into the 5 years, I think we really have an opportunity to manage this and really get a hold on this where we're mostly in control of these invasive plant species. So in the first mowing season, in the first growing season, we'd propose to mow the area 3 to 4 times throughout the spring and early summer months to a height of 6 inches. Carefully monitor irrigation. One of the things we have to be careful about when we're doing this kind of restoration is not to over-irrigate and encourage the invasive species and the weeds to grow back. In late summer, we'd commence selective herbicide treatments on invasive plant species and continue that through fall. In the second growing season, we'd mow or using a power scythe to a height of about 12 inches. This helps get biennial weeds out of there as well as helps us manage the invasive species. We'd begin mowing in April or May, mow 2 to 3 times over the spring and early summer months. Again, a power scythe can be used effectively. Continue to monitor for signs of invasive species, noxious weeds. We could start to hand pull some weeds, taking care not to disturb the establishing root systems of newly planted material, and then continue invasive plant management through the summer and fall months. Finally, in the third growing season, and then what we're recommending as part of a long-term management plan, would be in early spring before new growth appears. That would be mid to late March. Cut the previous season's growth to a height of 2 to 4 inches. That allows us to monitor for signs of invasive and noxious weed species, prepare plans for herbicide treatment, and early summer, assess the need for ongoing irrigation. At that point, irrigation may not be necessary. Native grasses and forbs should have well-developed root systems at that point, and continue to commence the herbicide treatments that we're proposing to do through years 3, 4, and 5. After the third growing season, the restored buffer should be well established. The plants that we've planted should be well established, require very little support, except for the ongoing management of the invasive species. So I think I've wrapped up that. I guess, I'm sorry, one other thing that I didn't point out that the Cape Cod Condominium Association owners had asked was there is an existing path down the northern property which will remain. There's a bench that will remain for use by property owners and people who live in the area. They've also asked that we continue a pathway through that area, and this would be a regularly mown path, run up to the top of the berm, and then come out at the other end by the pool. And I think that would give property owners an opportunity to appreciate the importance of this buffer zone and the landscape that we're trying to restore here, the native landscape, naturalized landscape, as well as the fact that, quite frankly, with this 4-foot high berm in front of here, it does give some opportunities for nice views for property owners and people who are using the property to enjoy the views of Buzzards Bay. So I know that was really long, but this is a huge project. I'm happy to answer any questions about what we're proposing.
Thanks, Teresa. It was long but interesting. Jen, no question? Is that no question?
No,
Okay. Courtney?
I've got a couple of questions and comments. This is an area which is extremely exposed.
It is.
I'm familiar with the property because I, at one point or another, was involved in the management of it.
Okay.
I have no interest in it now, so, just so you know. And you have gone through a very lengthy discussion of methodology, which I'm not necessarily questioning the validity of it, but we considered a similar project on invasives control further down towards Woods Hole, the Bernstein property, which I believe, Tom, you're familiar with. And they were faced with a lot of the same challenges. And they used some slightly different methodology, which I don't believe, and Tom, you might correct me on this, mowing, but rather they used, I think it was some kind of jute matting and that kind of stuff to hold the invasives down. Because they had the same issue, managing invasives and coming back, and the challenge of planting.
Right.
Have you looked at that methodology?
I actually, I was senior restoration designer for Wilkinson Ecological Design at the time, and I actually wrote that land management plan.
Yeah, and how
So
does
I'm
this
very
differ?
familiar with
Yeah.
it. So the difference is we are proposing to use erosion control, biodegradable erosion control blanket, 18 to 24 month. I think coconut would be appropriate here, but a coconut jute mix would certainly be. The purpose of the erosion control blanket isn't to hold the invasive species down, because those plants will grow right up. Grass
Yeah,
will grow
right.
right up through that blanket. The purpose of the blanket is simply to prevent erosion, to stabilize.
So you're not envisioning erosion as being a problem?
Well, that's why we're proposing to use blankets as well. Yes, we are proposing to use blankets in this area. What will happen is we'll seed, and then the blankets will be put down. The seed mix, the grasses that we're proposing to use switchgrass, Indian grass, little blue stem, appropriate native warm seed, deep-rooted grasses, and I've included in the invasive species management plan a graph of the root systems of the grasses that we're proposed to use. So you can see what a great job they do at stabilizing banks like this. Those grasses will grow up through that blanket. We would actually be mowing, and when I say mowing, I'm not talking about bringing in a typical, household lawnmower. And for the most part, we're talking about using like a power scythe, which is something that, with a crew that you're holding by hand, you're cutting 6 inches above ground. So we're not pushing lawnmowers through this area. That's not what we're proposing to do at all.
And you mentioned knotweed there. How are you going to control that?
So we're going to do a cut and drip method. We'll start with a stem injection, and then we'll cut, drip. As you know, Japanese knotweed is is really, really difficult. I think we've been very successful with a cut and drip application. It's just being tenacious.
And I never can, the porcelain berry, what are you going to use there?
So we'll use a triclopyr-based herbicide, similar to what we use on the vine honeysuckle and the Asiatic bittersweet. The triclopyr-based herbicides approved for wetland areas is very effective on those plant species. The porcelain
I know
berry.
that stuff is tough, so.
Yeah, it is. It's really tough.
It's
Honestly,
resistant to a lot of herbicides that are approved.
yeah, no, the triclopyr-based herbicides are very effective on the porcelain berry. Unfortunately, they are the one plant that I'm quite frankly most concerned about on this site is the black swallowwort. It's really the most difficult plant to manage on this site.
Okay. And the species of plants that you're planning to put in there,
Yes.
I'm assuming that these are very resistant to wind damage and the like. 'Cause
Yes.
That's a real problem.
It's a hugely exposed site, and of course
Yes,
you
it
can
is.
see in the shape of the cedar trees. One of the things that really surprised me, the bayberry that was planted at the top of that berm is now actually, and of course it's being smothered by the invasive species, so it's reaching for the light. But that bayberry, when you're standing up on the top of the berm, is 5 or 6 feet tall, and I was shocked that it got that tall on the top of that berm with the wind coming out of that area. But I think the cedars are protecting it a little bit.
And finally, the path that you show going through there along the top of that berm,
Yeah.
the primary reason is to get access to the pool, is that the?
I think the primary reason is just to give property owners an opportunity to go out and be in this part of the landscape. There is, when you right now, if you can back your way through the invasives and get up to the top of this berm, it's beautiful. I mean, it really is beautiful up there, and I think they just want to try and enjoy that part of their property. They've got this really weird land formation. I mean, when you're on the ground and you're looking at this hill that just rises up in front of you, it's really weird, for lack of a better term. And so I think it just gives them an opportunity to explore that part of the property and enjoy
The
it.
top of that berm was originally slightly below the first floor level of the old Cape Cod.
Yeah, it took a while. It took, trying to discover, because at first I thought, were they digging out the foundation and dumping the soil up in front of here? But after looking at the old topo, it was clear
No,
that
they tore the building down and leveled that spot.
and just cut it right down. Yeah, it was interesting.
And so the path is to appreciate that berm as opposed to being primarily an access to the pool, because my first observation would be, if we're trying to develop a buffer,
Yeah,
why not just have people go through the lawn area that already exists between the berm and the building?
right. No, it's primarily to give property owners access to that berm area. And we discussed with the Cape Cod Condominium Association members that came out whether or not we just wanted to end that and perhaps put a little seating area up at the top of that berm, which would be entirely appropriate, versus making it a pass-through that goes all the way through. So, I mean, that would be something I know that they would definitely consider, is if we just wanted to create a path and create a seating area perhaps, put a bench there and leave that. I think that's something that, that they would be happy to consider.
And then finally, I think you alluded to the issue that, a plan was originally put in place in early, 2004 or whenever it was.
Right.
And that the people in the condominium association didn't follow up on that. And so hence you're back. And I would hope that, I know you don't have any control over it, but I hope that the people in that association this time do follow up.
Yes.
Because this is, you can spend, and they can spend, I should say, quite a bit of money to do this.
Absolutely.
And, despite your best efforts at invasive control,
Right.
they're gonna come back.
Exactly.
And there's gonna have to be a constant.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I didn't mention in my methodology was the part about monitoring and how important monitoring and staying in constant contact with staff and with the commission is going to be throughout this period. The other thing about the 2004 plan was that there wasn't really any long-term consideration given. There was a statement that, we'd do this and we'll plant these plants, but then no consideration was given beyond that, and that's what I'm thinking is really one of the biggest problems here.
I mean, I think that the plan itself and the idea behind it makes sense. I'm not opposed to
Yeah.
what's being proposed there.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with this situation. My concern is establishing a thing that there was a real plan that in fact does go on.
Right. No, I understand that entirely. Yeah. Okay.
And I don't have any other questions, Madam Chair.
Lori?
I'm just wondering how important that path is.
I think it's something that the condo owners would enjoy and, had asked for and had asked me to include in the plan. I think certainly it would give them an opportunity to, enjoy a piece of the property that's a, fairly interesting formation. Oh, I'm sorry, Tom. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly going to be, I think, thank you for pointing that out. I think as we're doing the invasive species management, it's going to be an access issue, so it's going to give us access to the area. And, as far as long-term management and monitoring, it would also give us access to an area that is somewhat difficult to reach. But I think as far as, it being a feature for the condominium association, it's just an opportunity to use that land formation that's rather strange.
Anything else? No. Well, I'm gonna call on Mike so he doesn't keep clicking the pen. He used to have to take pens away from Courtney because of that.
I apologize, Matt.
That's okay. Courtney would do it if he had a pen in his hand now.
Yeah.
You want the pen?
No.
The top of the treatment here is essentially the existing vegetation as I visit when I walk along.
I'm sorry,
The top of the treatment
Yes,
is
it is.
essentially at the lawn,
yes.
and that's not changing.
No, actually, we're not proposing to remove, the only thing that we are proposing to remove that's existing is there is one dead eastern red cedar, and it's,
Yep, lower
Yeah,
right.
You could see it.
yeah, so that's the only thing that we're proposing to remove. We're not proposing to remove any of the trees that shown in the background on the Tom site plan. All of those will remain intact. That edge of lawn will remain where it is right now. We're proposing to leave the edge of lawn there. There's currently,
And that bright line will be a line of shrubs?
will be a line of shrubs. So the whole idea of putting that line of shrubs there was to prevent perhaps an overzealous maintenance crew from pushing the lawnmower into the area. I know that happens, so the whole idea of creating that line of shrubs is to prevent that from happening in the future, so that the buffer zone is delineated by this line of shrubs along here. And it's a dense line of shrubs that we're trying to use.
Being a civil engineer by training, it's those steep slopes that, bother me. Your point that there isn't a lot of root vegetation is well taken west,
Yeah,
west of the pool area.
yes,
There's
yeah.
been some, creative pruning to keep the vegetation down in that area from the pool. I'm not, but there's not a lot of roots, and I'm just concerned that when you're finished with this thing, you're gonna have a slope that is gonna be exposed, and nature's gonna bring its storm when it wants to. And so all this is gonna be okay on that rather steep slope along the, what is the, green, light green area? Yeah.
Yes, so this area in here is really interesting. I know in this picture, I was focused on the Japanese knotweed, but if you look further down the bank, and you can see that there, basically, that is fairly well vegetated. There are a lot of trees on that bank. There's a lot of existing grass on that bank. Granted, it's beach grass and it's salt hay grass, which is not going to live long-term. But basically, what we're proposing to do in here is plant appropriate plugs, so switchgrass, Indian grass, et cetera, into the existing vegetation in here. So if you look at that, we'll be doing some very selective invasive species management, but what we're seeing here, the trees and the grasses of this steeper area down in here, that won't be disturbed except to actually plant appropriate deep-rooted native grasses into that to make sure that it remains stable. So we wouldn't be doing any kind of mechanical removal in here at all. We're basically invasive species that are beginning to grow down into that area will be selectively removed by hand. And all of these existing trees that you see, with the exception of the one dead cedar, will remain. So none of the native vegetation will be coming out of here. So I think it will remain stable. Any steep areas that we're concerned about stability, of course, we would cover with erosion.
Okay. No further questions?
Okay, thanks, Mike. You can have your pen back. Tom?
Not particularly pertaining to the planting plan, but do we have a certified plot plan from Tom?
We did prepare the base plan.
Tom, you want to
yes.
tell us who you are?
Sure, I'm Tom Bunker with BSS Design.
Thank you.
We prepared the base plan of that. I could file one with my stamp on it, but
Okay,
I can do that, yeah.
Thank you.
just confirming the
Then put a scale
boundaries.
on this one? There's no scale on the plan.
This one is 20, I think.
Probably a-
Scales over on the,
20 scale, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't draw a scale on the plan. Tom's one, which is-
Oh, I missed it. Okay, that's good. You got it. You covered.
Tom, if you could do that, it would be.
That was it.
Okay. Tom?
notes all over the place. Great minds think alike. I want the path so that you can monitor. I want it 4 foot wide. I think 3 foot is too minimal. 3 foot's nice, but you got a full-figured guy like me walking down there. The realistic part of it, 4 foot is something, if you got 2 people, form follows function. And I think a 4-foot path through there not only encourages people to see, because this is, I got notes all over, I'm just, this is a huge commitment
Huge.
for
Yep.
the Cape Codder. I hope they understand that.
Yes.
I got the words intense, all this, happy crap, and that's what that is all over there, is happy crap. It's just, the way that they're mechanically removing this, the slopes here where you're gonna take the machine and rip the Jesus out of it, is gonna be, less of a slope than what the Bernstein's was. Where your steeper slopes are, you have far more good vegetation than what the Bernstein's had. Another thing that I noticed about the path is look at where the less intense to the north
Yes.
of the path, it's a break. That there's, as minimal as that is, it divides it and gives it a little bit of
Yep.
a stopping point or whatever. I really think that would encourage, particularly it's a huge financial commitment for the people living here, and if they can understand what benefit it truly is,
Yes.
it may encourage, it may lessen the pain, the sting of
Yes.
paying for it. On the sheet 2, everybody's looking at the path area and such. Thank you. I lost it on that. There's nothing to be, no access points anywhere there proposed at this time, right?
No, and it's quite narrow. As a matter of fact, if you were to walk out on now, top of, and you could walk right out on top of this. Right now, you can't honestly tell where you're gonna fall off the top of the thing, because
No,
the lines
you
are going
cannot.
down the edge, yeah. So you have to be very careful. So I think they probably want to discourage anybody from walking in this area here. It drops off very quickly.
And one of the reasons that Bernstein started was overzealous cutting at the top of the bank.
Yes.
And so to delineate this with plantings and having an understanding of where to stop is also equally as important as the slope itself.
Yes.
Where you're taking the dead tree out, I don't see a tree going back.
No, we didn't propose a tree going back right in that area. We do have, and I think for obvious reasons, I think it's maximizing views. I mean, the dead trees there, it's directly in their views. But we are proposing cedar trees being planted.
Yep.
On this.
Over here. Yep.
Yes, yeah, on the northern part of the property. And quite frankly, we're down a little bit lower on the slope and won't negatively affect property owners' views.
You do have other trees that are gonna, if they're healthy, they're gonna grow in that area, so I'm not overly.
Yeah, I mean, there's a significant amount of sumac that's in there right now, which is, there's a stand of it, and then there's sumac throughout, but there's a pretty healthy stand of sumac that's managing to work its way up through. That's what we're proposing to flush cut, as well as along the edges of the path. And then, of course, there's eastern red cedar at the top of the berm. We're also proposing to plant some hemlock here, a little bit lower on the slope. And then, of course, there's quite a number of cedar trees in here. This area, as you said, to the north of the path is really quite nice. There's a great herbaceous plant community. There's a nice mix of bayberry and eastern red cedar in there. It's probably the nicest part of this property.
Do they have a contractor lined up?
That I think they're in the bidding process on that right
Okay.
now.
And I think it's gonna be paramount that, well, one of the other, like I said, I'm bouncing around a little bit. I think, in my eyes, this could be a 5-year permit easily, just because it's a management plan.
Yeah, Jen and I were.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and this is something that, it's an appropriate application
Yes.
that type of thing.
Yeah,
But the contractor really needs to be held by the hand,
yeah,
almost literally,
yep,
to let them know that you've exhaustively promoted a very intense, huge project, as
Right.
someone had said.
yep,
And it's gonna be important, when the activities were on the Bernstein site, there was somebody literally there every day
every
watching
day,
them.
absolutely.
And,
No, yep,
it's something that, weather changes happen fast.
yep,
You have to be able to respond. And it's not,
Sounds like
it's not,
it's spoken from experience.
yeah, yeah, you know,
yep,
when I say happy crap, I mean it.
Yeah.
It's, things can get out of hand in 25 minutes.
yeah,
And, no matter how hard you try.
mm-hmm,
So it's just something that I'm very much in favor. But a lot of this is going to be site management.
yes, agreed, I
And
agree
it's-
with you 100%.
And a little, if anybody can, a liaison to the people that are living there, that they could get horrified when all of a sudden they see,
Yes,
when the grenade hits the ground,
yeah,
don't think that that's the last of it. It's a process.
it
And
is
it's,
definitely, yeah.
It's well worth doing, and
Mhm.
it's your nice presentation.
Well, and just to let you know too, I've also had done presentations with the condo association and the property owners, gone and met with them over the summer. We had a large meeting, actually had a fantastic turnout in the middle of July, late July, where a lot of the property owners came out, and I was really able to walk them through this process and explain the huge commitment that they were making, as well as what they were going to be living with, quite frankly, for a little while. And they were so overwhelmingly supportive of doing this project, so that was fantastic.
Very good to hear, thank you.
Yes.
You done? Court?
I'm just, through the chair, Tom, you made a very sound point about the path, and I couldn't agree with you more on it. And to follow up also on Tom's comment about the contractor, do you know whether the condominium association has actually have a contractor in mind at this point?
Well, I can tell you that I have bid on the project, and I know that there are some other contractors who bid on the project, so I don't know if they've made a choice. I think we had to go through the permitting process and any final design revisions that needed to be made, but I for one, have bid on this project, so I would.
I think my inclination when we go to deliberate on this will be to insist on as a condition that there be a conference with the commission
Yeah.
and with staff
Mhm.
by the selected contractor prior to the first shovel hitting the ground or whatever it is that hits the ground first.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I have no other questions.
Did you have a question, Jen?
No, I have a
I have
comment.
some.
In cases like this, when the commission is presented with a management plan, especially this detailed and this involved, to switch the contractor on the commission would be absolutely unacceptable to staff. I mean, this presentation is being presented to you, there's a lot of detail in there. And usually when you have very detailed management plans like this board says that
this is the
plan
person.
must be implemented by the person that gave you the presentation and came up with the plan.
Yeah, well, I think that's the point. I
I'm
think
making
Courtney's
that
point
point.
is that if it isn't the person doing the plan, then whoever it is has to come before the board and be approved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Under management plan.
Yeah.
I'm not proposing that we, as a
No, we
commission,
can't,
end
we
up
can say nothing about
micromanaging the
what
project.
Kit
course.
Potter's
Yeah.
choice is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we're making it very clear
Right.
that if it's somebody other than the person who did the plan, we
Yeah.
need to have somebody come in and
Abs-
go through exactly what they plan to do
Yes.
in the
absolutely.
construction phase.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Short comment?
Certainly.
I think that there is the potential of a great improvement,
Mhm.
but it's one of these risk rewards. If things went wrong here, if
Yes.
somebody, you could make things much worse
Agreed.
So, from my perspective, all these comments are on, we're supportive of the improvement, but
Yeah.
we're leery of the risk.
Right,
That's all we're saying.
right, right. No, that's understood.
I have some questions.
Okay.
And some comments.
Okay.
One is, I don't have any problem with the path. In fact, I would encourage people, if you're gonna have a nicely new planted
Yes.
forest shrub community, to
Yep.
take an evening stroll through there and watch the
Yes.
sunset. I also don't have, I understand where your angst was, but given the condition of the mat of
Yeah.
vines between 10 and 18,
Yeah,
I would say if you have your workers there, just do the whole thing at once.
yeah.
Having said that, how long do you think I'm just, just a ballpark figure, you get a crew there, how
Yeah.
long would this initial phase
So,
take?
so
Will
the
you- Will
actual,
you cut and
yeah,
did your initial herbicide, and did your initial stabilization?
I think we're looking at probably about a month from one end of the property to another. Yeah, from north end to the tip of the south end, we're probably looking at about a 4 or 5 week period. I mean,
Okay.
it will be 4 or 5 weeks of intense, and of course, then, if there's weather issues in between, but, the time of year we're proposing to do this work, I don't anticipate that. Yeah.
Okay. The other is, when I was out there today, there was pink and red flagging on various trees and stuff.
Yes.
Are they trees to stay?
No, I think we were trying to locate some of the willow, there's some willow in there, and then it was simply for purposes for Tom's crew to be able to locate. I think the flagging is quite old. So there are some invasive species that have been flagged, and those will be removed. Obviously, there's some autumn olive in there that was flagged.
Maybe
There's
the red
also
was
some-
to remove and the pink, because pink,
I
there's a
don't-
lot of pink on cedar.
I did notice that, I think there was some old flagging
Yeah.
left even from when it was planted or from when somebody made an attempt at cutting out some of the olives in there, and then my crew put flagging on some things as they were being located, just so it
Oh.
wouldn't, locate them twice.
Okay.
I don't think they have any real
No.
meaning
They
other
they have
than that.
nothing to do with the actual construction and work.
No.
Okay.
No, none.
The mowing that you're talking about,
Yeah,
the mowing's gonna be between where you've planted,
exactly.
okay.
The goal is to plant in clusters, so, sort of naturalized clusters, so that you're able to mow around and certainly not over any of the woody vegetation. And that's why I'm also proposing to use like a power scythe.
Right.
You have more control.
And presumably, where you're doing that mowing, some of those clusters of woody vegetation are gonna be filling back in.
Filling back in,
Okay.
exactly. Yep.
And my last question is, I know the problems with swallowwort.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is, are you gonna be planting, where you have some of the grasses and so forth, are you gonna plant other milkweeds?
Yes. So we'll be, part of the seed mix will include both butterfly weed and common milkweed. And then we'll also be plugging butterfly weed into the area as well. So yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I have.
I'm gonna make a motion. We ready for that?
Yeah, and then we'll take questions from the audience.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Second.
Okay, any other questions on the board? Jen, any other questions? Any questions from the audience? Arthur?
Members of the commission, my name is Arthur Gaines. I live at 61 Haynes Avenue in Falmouth, and I'm here tonight representing the SIP-WISIT Association, which I'm an officer. Our bailiwick runs from Quistit Harbor to basically to Wood Neck, and so this area is right within our area of interest. I'm also a landowner in the SIP-WISIT subdivision, in which this project also occurs. And I'd just like to say up front that one of the difficult parts of all of this, and you guys face it all the time, is that many people with different opinions here are friends, and so you're differing with your friends, and it's not something that brings joy to us, but it's possible we won't be differing. We don't really have, at this moment, don't have comments on the specifics that were presented tonight, but I think that Mr. Bose's suggestion that a certified plot plan be submitted should be taken very seriously. And in fact, I would submit that this hearing be continued until we've had a chance to study that plot plan. And my organization's principal concern in this particular issue has to do with public access, public and community access. There are 4 instruments of access that apply to this particular project. One of them that everyone is familiar with is the Colonial Ordinance, which provides fishing, fouling, and navigation access between high and low tide. I'd like to see the high and low tide marked on a certified plot plan. A second instrument for community access has to do with the specifics of the Sippawisset subdivision, which was put together and filed in 1897, 117 years ago, and which provided a coastal belt in front of all of the lands, all of the subdivision plots that are seen as adjacent to the coast. And the back lot lines in that plan were detailed in 1903 and were submitted to the town of Falmouth. But over the years, there's been erosion of that, and there's been attempts by some owners and their representatives to modify those backlot lines and represent them as sidelines that extend all the way to low tide. This is I would like it to be clear to this group, I know you don't adjudicate this kind of thing, but the property lines that don't show the backlot line are disputed, will be disputed. And I think you need to keep that in mind. We'd like to see the backlot line presented on this certified plot plan that I'm hoping you will, that apparently you will require. A third instrument of access is another special one that applies to the 15-foot right-of-way that was mentioned in the presentation from the end of Standish Road down to the water's edge. And I'd like to see that right-of-way represented on a certified plot plan because it was hard fought over. It was a Board of Appeals decision, and I think Vicki Lowell was sort of the instrumental person in making sure that happened. We'd like to see that respected, and whatever the plan is for controlling invasive species, we'd like to see it respect that right-of-way or come to an agreement by which the right-of-way is recited in a way that's acceptable. And the fourth instrument is access rights associated with a Chapter 91 license associated with the riprap along the base of that cliff. And we'd like to see the license numbers of those licenses so that we can see where that right-of-way would extend along the surface of the waterfront there. That concludes my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can. There are some other representatives of our association here tonight who may have comments to make as well.
Okay, before you continue, I think you're right that Tommy brought that up, and we do require certified plot plans. And so I think
I'm gonna, I'd like to comment to it and
Yeah.
then make a motion.
Yeah.
But, you're right. A lot of times things are sometimes difficult because all of a sudden the world rears its head up and there's a lot more than what you thought. This is a pretty basic forward project. I am going to remove my motion to close it. And the reason being is that we do need a certified plot plan, and we will have it before we close the hearing. All right, that will satisfy one of the things that you brought up. As far as some of the other items, when Mr. Bunker brings in the certified plot plan, those are on his shoulder. not this board. To satisfy this board's requirements, a certified plot plan. Any challenges of a certified plot plan brought in to us is not what I am not getting into that quagmire,
Sure, I understand.
all right? But I will, like I said, withdraw my motion and ask for a continuance so that we can get a certified plot plan.
For the record, I was the one that made the motion. I'll request withdrawing, and I think you seconded it.
Well, there you go.
Just
I
for
withdrew
the-
his motion and then
That's
my
okay.
second. That's why I have a beard, not a pen, because I can pull on it.
I don't mind, but I just want to make sure we get it straight.
Yep. And I think those are legitimate concerns that were brought up.
Next time, you can make the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, so before I take any more public comment, I'm going to go back to Teresa. And would you like to ask for a continuance?
Certainly.
Recognizing that
Yes.
we would not be happy to have to vote on something without a certified plot plan.
Absolutely. So I would like to ask for continuance, and I'm wondering if we could continue until January 29th at the earliest, because I'm not going to be available the next 2 Wednesdays, in order to submit a certified plot plan.
Motion to continue the hearing till January 29th.
Second.
Thank you, Courtney.
Tommy.
Is that gonna give Tom enough time to get it in for the public to review it?
Yes.
Yeah, Tom would have to get it in by the 22nd.
And then the public will have a week?
Well, yeah,
It'll
but
be
they can
public
come to
record for a
the,
week before the hearing, though?
right,
Okay.
right.
And the certified plot plan will show rights of way and all that stuff. We want to make sure that there's no question, everything's on there that needs to be on
This
there.
already shows a back property line on this. Tom just has to give us the plan this was based off of.
Are there any other questions? There's a motion, a second on the table to close this hearing. No,
Continue.
there's a motion, a second on the table. See, I'm glad everybody's awake. I just have to test you. Bob?
Hi, I represent the condominium
Would you have to
association.
tell us who you are?
I'm Bob Ament. I'm an attorney in Falmouth. I represent the condominium association. That's the applicant. I had a few things I wanted to say, but they've been covered pretty well. I had comments about the proposed path that has been proposed. I wanted to just point out that, of course, the work that was done in 2004 and 2005 was pursuant to an order of conditions, but that a certificate of compliance was issued in 2005, just a year after the order was issued. And really, that was perhaps the problem with the presentation back then, the proposal, and the order of conditions, that it wasn't a long-term order, or not a 5-year order, for instance, that we're suggesting with all this monitoring. Now, this project is, I don't think in any way impacts any of the access that's been raised, but over the next 3 weeks, perhaps we'll have an opportunity to talk to the representatives of the neighborhood and just go over whatever concerns there are. But perhaps the most important thing I wanted to say before leaving it tonight is, on behalf of the Condominium Association, I really want to thank Teresa Sprague, because I think it's obvious from the work that she's described over the last year and her presentation tonight, what a job she's done, what a process it has been. A condominium association in this case is quite a number of people with varying interests. There are buildings which are not on the water. There are buildings of different types with different concerns. And to bring everybody together to support such an expensive, long-term project for this condominium is a real feat. And Teresa deserves a lot of credit for that. Thank you.
She does, and she gave a great presentation. Okay, now, there's a motion and a second on the table to continue the hearing until January 29th. Are there any other comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Tree. Very nice presentation.
One minute. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we'll give all of you who don't have to be here for this next hearing 2 minutes to leave the room, and if you have any discussion, take it all the way down to the end of the hall, so we can't hear you. Thank you.
They might not have made it over to my left arrow.
You've been very patient tonight, Mike. Continued request for hearings under a notice of intent. Stephen Van Toll, 53 Toby Lane, East Falmouth, for permission to remove and replace the existing pier drain and float with fixed pier within the same footprint. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll say that in my comments. The form is
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. My name is Michael Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. This is a continued hearing. We made our full presentation just before the holidays, and we received some comments and suggestions from this commission. You asked for some additional information, and we requested that we consider some changes to the proposed dock reconstruction. We did some additional research to demonstrate that the dock has existed prior to 1978. It's been in continuous use. We submitted an aerial photo. We also gave you copies of the family photos that we had shown at the original hearing. And in our opinion, the evidence we provided through the aerial photos and the family photos demonstrate that the dock qualifies to as a grandfather dock for reconstruction and then licensing under Chapter 91 after you have, we hope, issued an order of conditions. The plan changes that we provided were as suggestions from this commission to mitigate against the boat that ties at the dock, which is currently a straight dock, platform 4 foot wide with a ramp and float. The way the boat ties now, the bow and probably a significant portion of the hull would possibly, well, not possibly, would bottom out at low tides. So what we're proposing here is to change it to a T, and we've shown the T so that the face of the T doesn't extend out any more seaward than the current end of the float that exists, so that the boat would not tie perpendicular to shore and alongside the straight dock, but it would tie parallel to shore along the new T face in water depth of 3 feet or greater at low tide in the area designated as the mooring field. So that plan change was made. The mooring field was shown. There were some comments from Division of Marine Fisheries about adjusting the location of the pilings. So we did that as well on this plan to get a little more distance from the edge of the salt marsh. And we had some notations on the plan about the depth to hand dig some posts that was a little bit aggressive and probably not realistic to hand dig to 6 feet. So we changed that to a maximum of 4 foot, and it's noted on the plan. So I think that the plan changes are definitely an improvement. They help mitigate against issues with bottoming out at low tide. It certainly limits, and it's the intention to just have one boat tied here. think we've also submitted the evidence to demonstrate grandfathering. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Well, the only note I have on here, Mike, and I think Tom brought it up last time, and I may be wrong, Tom, seasonal water line, did you show that? And I don't see it. I didn't see it on the old, did you put it on this one, the new one?
On the
We'll
old,
make a note that it's there. Was it on the old one?
it's on the old one, no, it's there, it's there. It's electric service and water service
Oh,
on the
sorry.
cross-section.
Okay.
Yep.
It's on the cross-section.
Okay.
It's
Yep.
not on the plan view.
Okay.
I could,
That's what I was looking for, that's fine, Mike, as long as it's noted somewhere that there will be water in my pit, that's fine with me. Kind of expected, so.
Okay, I view this as sort of a reconfiguration in the same footprint. It's a reconfiguration that will better serve the environment.
Yes.
Were there any other questions?
And we're still gonna have, I got some comment or stuff written down. By the by, thank you for the tea, makes a whole lot more sense. It's gonna be, like the chair said, a whole lot better. The pipes along the mean high water and the ropes and all that, this is gonna be, that might have been necessary for tying stuff off before. Those are all gonna be, that'll be part of the conditions that those will be removed.
that might go under the category of happy crap. That'll be
Right,
gone.
exactly.
Yeah.
All the happy crap, yep. All right, I'd like to make a motion to close and take,
Wait,
I can make a motion, right, and
you can make the motion, but I'd like our fellow commissioners to get a chance to comment if they have to.
I got excited.
You can
It's a
make-
new year, I'm sorry.
Any comments at this end? Mike?
No comment.
Okay, your turn, Mike, or your turn, Tom.
Make a motion to close it and take it under advisement.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Any further questions? Any questions from the audience? No questions from the audience? We'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Good improvement.
I have an announcement that if anyone would care to
Madam
join.
Chairman, you're actually to vote to continue, which you kind of just said it.
Right.
Oh, we haven't voted, but let me make my comment. On Monday night, we're scheduled to be in front of the Board of Selectmen for the grant that we're putting in this month. If anyone,
On the Coonamessett?
on the Coonamessett, if anyone would like to come,
And
you're
do you
welcome.
have a time when,
I do not have a time. I will let you know the time.
okay.
Yes, right.
A motion to continue the Town of Falmouth Beach Committee, Minot Beach,
Second.
to the 22nd.
Okay, there's a motion on the table to continue Town of Falmouth Beach Committee, Minot Beach, to January 22nd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Conference call with Christine to talk about that plan tomorrow.
Oh, good, because I saw Don last
Yeah,
week.
We can relay exactly what, I thought he had,
What did-
Yeah,
I could have sworn he had a number.
yeah.
But apparently not.
Well, good.
Yeah, so.
You
I'm
can
happy-
explain to her about our beach management plan, too.
Yeah, no, I.
That's part of the
yeah.
angst.
I didn't catch the date, January?
On January 22nd. Through the chair, we've been away, I've been away since the...
Longer than we have.
Longer than you guys. And I'd like to express my thanks for last year's efforts by this board and all that we do that a lot of people don't understand. And may we have continued success in such our endeavors in 2014. I think
Oh, that's a good wish.
I think we've done a pretty stand-up job, so.
Here, here.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
I just
You wanna
wanted
comment?
I just wanted to make one quick comment and add to what Tom has to say. I've been on this board probably longer than anyone else. You came on shortly after I had. And in my time on this board, the last 2 or 3 years, this board has operated with great harmony and gotten its work done. It's been remarkably consistent, as well as being good-natured in dealing with some difficult things. And I think that in the process of that, the people who come in before us, beginning, as Mike noted to me at one point in a conversation, have begun to realize that we're not only fair, but we're consistent about what it is that we expect. And the result is that things get done much more efficiently, and that's a credit to this group, and it's a credit to Jen's excellent administratorship.
Okay, so that was all a motion. And,
It wasn't a motion, it was just a
and a second.
Patting
That
yourself
was a
on the back.
flapping,
I think I
it was a
did. I think I
flapping
broke mine.
tongue and lip.
And we'll take the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. I wouldn't still even know what a Conservation Commission was, of course.